Okay, so let's talk about a service learning project. And just to kind of give you a brief overview, the goal of your service learning project is actually to basically pair you up with a real world K-12 classroom teacher. Um, and we think that this is important because all the things that you've been learning in W200, you've been reflecting on how do I think technology could be used? What do I think will be relevant to my own teaching and learning? But we want you to also consider the voice and the choices and the type of classroom context that you may encounter out in the real world. So the goal of this service learning project is to actually connect you with a K-12 classroom teacher. For that K-12 classroom teacher to provide you with some kind of situation, whether they say, I want to teach my students the differences between um, the different seasons, or maybe I want you to help me teach my students how to do a basic persuasive argument, whatever the learning goal is, the objective, and the standards. And then also to talk about their particular classroom. Like, so does my classroom have a lot of resources, maybe some iPads, maybe they're doing Google Classroom, Google Apps. So provide you with some kind of context, and then you are actually going to propose a solution for them. So here I found some great video websites, or I thought that, using Edpuzzle, or maybe doing a really fantastic Toontastic presentation would really motivate your students or get them excited. And I know that you can do it because you have these resources in your classroom. So you'll actually say, here's my ideas. Hopefully the teacher will provide you with feedback on those ideas, and then you'll actually make those things for the teacher. So it'll be within an authentic K-12 classroom, and again, you're going to be considering what do the teachers actually need, and then what are their expectations, like what are different things that you may need to consider as well. So there are different components of this. The first one is a service component. So because you're actually designing and developing something, technology, some kind of technology enhanced materials for a K-12 teacher, that's a great service that you're providing to the K-12 realm or world or whatever it is. But then there's also this learning component where you're going to take the knowledge that you've learned in W200 and actually apply that into a real world scenario for this K-12 teacher. The other thing that this is going to do a great job of is you're going to be able to collaborate with and share different resources with a K-12 teacher. Again, so that's a really great learning experience for you. Then finally, we're going to ask you to reflect on what you learned from this experience. So when does technology work? What makes technology sometimes difficult or more challenging to integrate? What were some different things you had to consider? So it actually puts you in the place of a teacher to start thinking about how might you handle the situation? When can technology be a really great benefit? So who am I talking about when I talk about these K-12 teachers? Well, you're actually going to go out and try to find the clients, or try to find the K-12 teachers. So you can take teachers. So let's say that you want to be secondary English teacher. You have to find a secondary English teacher. If you want to do early childhood education, then you have to find an early childhood educator. So this is really important, because if you just find any teacher, like let's say I want to be a secondary English teacher, but I find a physical education teacher that I love and that is willing to work with me, that doesn't really help you think about how you might use it in your future English language arts classroom. So that's really important. But you can reach out to your your previous K-12 teachers in your subject area. So let's say you had a really amazing really amazing algebra teacher, and you want to teach secondary mathematics, then that would be a great person for you to connect with. It could also be a relative or family friends, or even your family members. If your mom's a teacher, or if your aunt is a teacher, or cousin, or whoever it is, you can definitely pair up with them. They do not have to be within the state of Indiana. Just if you have questions about it, you can ask your AI to clarify and make sure that that's okay. It could be a field experience cooperating teacher. So in P251, this could be someone that you could potentially work with, or even pre-service teacher that's doing their student teaching, maybe that wants a little bit of work. But that, I would think that would be probably the least one that you would want to do, just because you really want to design something for someone who's a more experienced teacher. So they have to have some kind of teaching responsibility and have access to some kind of technology. Doesn't matter if it's just one computer in the classroom, that's fine. And be willing to consider different technology enhanced lessons or materials. So in order to get started, we've made this really easy for you. And if you go right now onto the W200 page, let me show you. On the W200 page, under assignments, you can go down to the service learning project, and it has all of the steps that you have to consider as you go through. So we actually have an invitation email that gets sent out, as well as a reminder email. So like the invitation email looks like this. So you can copy and paste it into your own your own email. You know, fill it in with your own information or tweak it to make it your language. If your teacher hasn't responded within the first week or so, we've even got like a reminder email for you here that you can send that's a little bit shorter. Maybe they've kind of forgot about that. And what will happen is in this invitation email, there is a link right here to the short survey. And so your teachers will fill out this survey, and it just gathers information about what grade level they would like to address, how many students, any technology resources that are available within their school and within their classroom, and then kind of asking them to talk about what do we want to focus on, you know, like what are the learning objectives, how much time would they like to dedicate, how did they teach it in the past, and then what did students typically struggle with, those type of things. So it gathers that information, and then on our page here, you will be able to review the actual results. So what will happen is that this will eventually be filled out with all of your teachers' information, so that you can kind of look at those. So what you'll do finally is you will also create a service learning, or you'll create a copy of this service learning project template. So this is what we're actually going to work on. You'll go step by step through it. Once you get your information, you will copy and paste all of this information from the survey into this. So you'll go through step by step there, and then you'll reflect on it. So after you kind of get this information, you try and consider, okay, now that I know how much background technology use my teacher has, I can start actually looking at how might that impact what I suggest. So if the teacher is really fantastic with technology and rates himself a 5 out of 5, you don't have to worry about suggesting new technology, those type of things. So in order to do this, you're just going to make a copy of it and then rename it as your name, and put it into your Google Drive folder. And then you can start editing once you do that part. Okay. And so here's kind of the step-by-step as we go through it. So the first part, again, is to summarize what does the teacher need, right? So we start identifying all of these different elements, and then we go down to steps 2, where you will actually select a particular standard and develop those learning objectives. Step 3 is, now that you've identified the learning objectives, then now you'll start to develop an outline to say, here's what I want to accomplish in all of my different areas. Then you'll search for different technology options for each of those, select the best option, and inform the teacher of your plan, and then you'll reflect on it afterwards. So let me show you what that looks like here. So you'll go through here. Here's step 1. So with step 1, it'll have all of my project information, and I'll enter it, copy and paste the different things that the teacher had here, reflect on it below, and again, we have lots of guiding questions in here for you as well. Step 2, you'll analyze the learning objectives, so you'll actually write down learning objectives as well. The examples here are in blue. And all of our kind of like helpful hints are in red, and you can delete all of the red and blue text when you're done. Step 3 is, once you've identified your different learning objectives and you've pasted the standard up here, now you start to say, what am I going to do in order to meet that particular objective or standard? And then step 4 is, then you'll search for different technologies. So what are some examples of different technologies? And you should have 3 or 4 examples in each different area. Step 5 is then looking at what are those different technologies. I'm going to pick the ones that I think are the best and talk about how you'll use them, and then you'll actually do a summary here. And I know this seems a little bit overwhelming at first, but your AIs will walk you through all these different elements and all of these different processes. Now, let's just talk very briefly about the inquiry project and the service learning project. So the inquiry project, again, we're trying to reinforce similar things in all of these. So we've been talking a lot about standards, and even in your video project, you had to select a standard, create some kind of a draft, and then you develop the final product. So that's very similar to everything that we're doing. We always select standards. We talk about how this can help learning. We create some kind of a draft so that we can provide feedback on it, and then we create some kind of a final product, and then we reflect on our learning experience. So that's kind of the typical feel in W200 is to always do this with our big projects. So for our inquiry project, you will select your own standard just like you did for your video project. And you'll create a lesson plan in this and like a draft of it in a final product. And you'll reflect on that learning experience. And for the service learning project, we'll actually do something similar where we're selecting that particular standard, but the cooperating teacher actually provides you with the standard. You'll go through the lesson plan, which is the 7 steps that we just showed you. And then you'll actually create a draft and create final products of those 2 artifacts, getting teacher feedback and then reflecting on your learning and service experience. So all very similar, again, this process that you're going through. So here's what you need to do before the next week as you're getting started, is I want you to think about who could your potential client be. Come to class, maybe look them up online if you need to find their email address, especially if it's been a few years since you've had that particular teacher. Like if it was your first grade teacher, make sure that that first grade teacher is still teaching and still at that particular school, because what we're going to do is when we come in class, you're going to find a W200 partner who's in the same subject area and grade level. If you're secondary science or secondary arts or secondary foreign language or secondary math and you don't have a partner, I'm sorry, you're going to probably have to work by yourself. Or you can try and find a W200 partner from another section. That might be a possibility. But what you will do together is you will decide on which client you want to work with and then contact that client. So your W200 instructor, again, will work through all of these different steps with you, but this was an overview of the service learning project. And just a tip, we recommend that you work in pairs, but you don't have to. You can work by yourself, especially if you don't like working with other people. And if your group can't find a client by week 7, you have to let your W200 instructor know, because we need to be able to find you someone to work with. So meaning that if you don't receive a response back from your K-12 teacher. Okay, best of luck to you in your service learning project, and I look forward to the awesome results at the end. Again, you can find all of this information on our W200 service learning page, as well as the forms and templates, different examples, as well as a wide range of examples that we've included from just this past semester that were really fantastic.